Into another presentation on the HND case study 2025 question 8 solution. So this is the question before us. Before you start following the solution, I will advise you as usual to go and first of all read the question and try to understand before coming back. So the first will require we have to, this is company accounting. They say that the company has a total capital of 40 million francs. All right, it has total capital of 40 million francs with shares divided into with shares of 44,000 francs. So if we have contribution in kind, contribution in cash, that was 3,000, contribution in kind, 1,000 shares. So now let us go straight to the word requirement. Say calculate the number of shares owned by Wahala. But before we come here, there is another word required over here, which we are going to first of all do. They say finalize the formation of Latcam PLC up to the 10th of March 2023. So we are doing this work required. Okay, so for us to journalize, we have to go to our journal. Okay, so we go to our journal and we try to do the accounting record. Okay, so when we look at it, they say the company was formed on the what? On the 4th. The company was formed on the 4th, was created on the 4th. So this is the equation did on the 4th. So let's go ahead now to do the accounting recording. So accounting recording, we start on the 4th. Okay, on the 4th of we start on the 4th of March. On the 4th of March 2023. So we have debit on the 4th of March 2023. Okay, we are going to debit account 4611. That is a contribution in kind, 10 million francs. We credit account we debit again account 4612, 30 million. Now the credit of account 1011 with how much with the total, which is 40 million. All right, so the narration is what is being promised. So narration is being promised of capital subscription. So did that narration. So go to straight very fast to the next. Next we have now, we need to record the call of the first quarter. So we did with account 1011, 1012, with how much? Here is first quarter is 17,500,000, 17,500,000. Here we have 17,500,000. So this for the 17,500,000 first question, we have 10 million of contribution in kind plus 1 quarter plus this, all right, divided by 4. So when we add this is going to give us 17,500,000. So this narration will be in the what? Being the call of the first quarter. So we roll our line. We take TO. So now we have we are going to do what we're going to do is that we're going to debit. We're going to look at the constitution of the debt. So we're going to debit account 46113. We debit again account 109, and then we credit account. This amount is taking 17,500,000 the total. And then this account 109 is taking 22,500,000. Okay, 22,500,000. So to 22,500,000 is gotten like this. This is 30 million divided by 4 times 3. We're going to have this amount. All right. So we're going to have that amount. So let's continue. So from here, we're going to have we're going to credit account 4611 with how many million? With 10 million. And then we are going to create it again account 4612 with how many million? With 30 million. So the narration of being constitution of debt due on shareholders' capital. So being constitution of debts. All right, that's it. So we continue quickly to the next one. Now we are going to record the payment of contribution in kind with the office. What was brought in, that is the debit account 244 246113. That is the payment of contribution in kind. Okay, the amount here was 10 million. 10 million. We have 10 million. So we have being the payment of cash contribution. Okay, so being no contribution in kind, being the payment of contribution in kind. So I throw with that. We go to the next. We debit account 521 sorry 46113 with how much? With 7.5 million. 7.5 million is the first quarter, so don't forget 7.5 million is 30 million divided by 4. So we're going to have the 7.5. So when the one is being the payment of contribution in cash. So we go to the next one. The next one now we're going to record formation expenses. Okay, the formation expenses. So we have 626271 with 620,000. We have a 6318 with a 210,000. So we have 6324 with 840,000. With 840,000, that's 840,000. So we have the next one, 646 is taking 750,000. So we have about 4454. Our calculator is going to give us 321,475. So if you take note that is calculated only on this amount, excluding what is calculated only on this amount, excluding registration, just this TV amount. So we take this TV amount, add this TV amount, so take a 19.25% times the total of this TV amount times this 620 plus 210 plus 840. All right, so we don't calculate VAT on this. VAT on this is not accepted. It's not accepted because it's already a tax. So take note. Or add the two now. Add all now and 5 to 1. It's going to give us 2 million. It's going to give us 2,741,475. Okay, so this is it. So we're through. Let us continue. So let me just run up this other one here. Now on the same date, let's continue. Okay, on the same date now we're going to have on the same date, let's work on the recognition of the capitals on the same date. We debit account 1012 since all the capital has been paid 1012. What was called, okay, with 17,500,000. So I hope you know what 17 million is contribution in kind plus first quarter of contribution in cash. So national being recognition of paid up capital. That's first quarter, so don't forget. So the next one now, we are going to go to the second work. So we are through with the first work required. So we are through with this. We are through with this. Okay, so we are now going to the second one required. So they say calculate the number of shares owned by Wahala. So this is where we are now. All right. So one, calculating the number of shares owned by Wahala. So we have calculating Wahalas shares. So calculating Wahala shares, we're going to take they said they gave him 650. There was this amount 6 million. So 500, and so divided by 10,000. 10,000 is a unit price of a share, which will have 656. So now this 656 is equal to 3 quarter. So we now said, okay, let Wahalas shares be equals to X. Okay, so now we know that, okay, 3 quarter of X is equals to 3 quarter of X is equals to 656. Okay, so X now will be equals to 656 divided by, we take 3 quarter, we're going to have 0.175. 0.75. So X Wahala share is 875. We was having 875 shares. So these are Wahala shares. So we're through with this. So Wahala shares, this number of places 875. So now let's go to generalize the second call up to the fifth of 10. Okay, up to the fifth of 10. So generalize second call up to the fifth of 10. So we have second call. So accounting recording for second call. Accounting recording second call. So the second call now we're going to take on the 27th of April. So we have 27th of April. 27th of April. We are going to do this. Okay, we're going to deal with account 10, 11. 10, 11, 10, 12 with how much? 10, 11, 10, 12 with 50 million. 50 million is half of, so 50 million is 30 million. That's the contribution in kind, in cash, divided by 4 times 1 times 2. So that's it. So being the call for second quarter. Okay, so we do our line DO. So we go to the next one. On the same day, we are going to debit account 467. We'll create 109 with how much? With the total that was being called 15 million. 15 million. So the narration is being acknowledgement. Okay, being acknowledgement of second call. Okay, of second call. So we go to the third one quickly. We go to the next. So on the next, we're going to record now the payment. Okay, payment of 52146. This we're going to have this amount now is going to be 12,812,500. Okay, 12,812,500. So this is how the amount was gotten. So before we go to the amount, we have being the payment of the second call. So being partly payment, because not full, being partly payment of second call. So this is how this amount is gotten. Okay, we have 50 million minus Wahala's share was 875,000. I mean 8,750,000. 8,750,000. If we divide it by 4, okay, when we divide by 4, we're going to have so we're going to have 50 million. And what he was supposed to pay for the second quarter, 2,187,500. So that's how the amount is gotten. Okay, so this is the answer. All right, so now let's go ahead we record now the other part of the question. Let's go ahead quickly. So we're going to the other part of the question. So on the same day, we're going to record now. We're going to record now the forfeiture of Wahala share. So we bring in account 416, that is the 14 shoulder. So create the 467,109. So we have 8,750,000. That's the total of the shares. Okay, 8,750,000. The 8,750,000 because it was supposed to give us 2,187,500 for the second call. And then for the third and fourth, he was supposed to give us a 20. Yes, he was supposed to give us 2,187,500. Okay. So let us go ahead and calculate. This is being for features for one batch share. So being the forfeiture, of Wahala shares. Okay, let's go ahead on the same day. So from here we're going to go to on the 28th. Okay, on the 28th of 8th, on the 28th of 8th. So we're going to debit 6324. Okay, the 521. Okay, we're debiting with the 240, the amount that was given to the belly. All right, 240 here. So being payment of honorary fees, so being payments of honoraries fee. Okay, so we go to the next one. On DO, on the same date, we have this. We debit 4617, and then we credit because there was interest, okay, that was given to Wahala and transfer of expenses. So here we're going to have interest here is going to be the interest here. Well, let's calculate the interest. It's supposed to be 4 series. That is the amount of capital, the amount that he had, okay, for the amount that he failed to pay. Okay, so this times what? Times 24 months times 2 years, because that's what they said, times 2%. Okay, no, times we take this amount times 12, because they said the interest, let's verify. They said the interest was when we look at it, they said it was 12%, okay, for 2 months. Okay, 12% for 2 months. Okay, 12% for 2 months. So 12% for 2 months. So we have this times 12% times 2 months all over 1,200. So when we calculate, it's going to give us 87,500 funds. 87,500 francs. So here we're going to have 240. There was an amount that we paid. So we'll add this two, which should give us 327,500 francs. So this is being imputation of net interest. Okay, so being imputation of Linus interest to Wahala, to shareholder Wahala. So there is it. So we go to the next one. Okay. The next one now, after we have done the imputation of Linus interest, we're going to go to the sale of the share. So we have on the second of 10, we're going to have this. So we debit account 521, we credit account 4617. All right, with how much we did? 6,560,000. So we have 6,560,000. So the one is being the sales of Wahala share. So being the sales of of Wahala shares. So we go ahead. So we have DO. We continue. So we debit 109. Okay, 4617. So we are going to have 2,187,500 francs. 2,187,500 francs. Okay, being shareholder, being substitution of shareholder. Okay, so we are substituting for the amount for the third call and the fourth call. Okay, being the substitution, of the shareholder, All right. Now, the substitution of shareholder. So we're going to go now to the next one that is on the same day. On the same day, we can have that the capital has been paid. Okay, we debit account 1012, we have 1013 with 50 million. Okay, 50 million, 50 million, 50 million here. So being recognition of paid up capital, capital. So on the same day, we have these. After this, we go to the fifth. Okay, we go to the fifth. On the fifth, okay, on the fifth of 10, we're going to have the payment of the reimbursement of the share. So we have 4617 521. They said it was paid 2,193,800. 2,193,800. So narrations being reimbursement. Reimbursement of shareholder wahala. All right, so we have come to the end of the solution. Thank you so much for watching, and see you in the next question.